Be me.
You're wanted, Wales.
Right popular. You a bounty hunter?
Man's got to do something for a living these days.
Dying ain't much of a living, boy.
I'm looking for ZJYL.
Be me.
You're wanted, Wales.
Right popular. You a bounty hunter?
Man's got to do something for a living these days.
Oh my God. It's ZJYL. Why, you're gonna pull those pistols and whistle Dixie? Oh my God. All right, let's see. There we go. God, I don't look very, I look a little bit late night. My printer's not working, so I couldn't print anything out to read, but the 2 or 3 things, and then we'll just talk. I mean, whatever you guys want to suggest or type back to me, and maybe not all the same hands, but I think tomorrow could be let me say it differently. This week or next week, I think ZJYL could have a good move. I was going through my list of these January effect stocks, and none of them really worked. So I would say that this year we didn't have a January effect. But I think of those stocks, I think CAUD, Logic, well, even I had Vocal here on that, but I've backed off of that. But even that one was up the other day. Anyway, they all seem to be having a movement, and it might be because of this 11th Circuit Court ruling, which I am not conversant in completely. If he comes on, can tell you more about it. But and maybe you can tell me about it. I tried to find it here before I came on, but I couldn't. I did find an interesting article, which you guys might remember it already. But on October 30th of last year, on Reuters, FINRA, the headline on Reuters, in FINRA's existential legal fight, help comes from the DOJ. And I'm sure this is something most of you might have read before, but I hadn't seen it. It says the private securities industry regulator, FINRA, is getting help from the United States Justice Department as it tries to ward off what it acknowledges to be an existential threat to its authority to police U.S. brokers and dealers. Both FINRA, which is formerly known as the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, and the DOJ filed briefs last week. Now, this is 4 months ago. So this is old news, but I hadn't seen the article. At the District of Columbia's U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing that FINRA's private regulation of the securities industry breaches neither the U.S. Constitution's Appointments Clause nor the constitutional doctrine that the federal government cannot delegate its power to unsupervised private groups. A broker-dealer called Alpine Securities, a broker-dealer, bunch of effing crooks, contends otherwise in an appeal that has become increasingly consequential. It's a good time to point out everything I say is not legal advice. It's not financial advice. It's in my opinion and it's in my best judgment. Alpine's lawyers at Cooper and Kirk sued earlier this year to enjoin a FINRA hearing on whether Alpine should be expelled from the industry, of course, for its thousands, tens of thousands of violations. But anyway, whether it should be expelled from the industry for violating a previous cease and desist order to stop charging its customers allegedly unlawful fees. Ham's going to come on at some point, so not legal advice. If you want to join me, we'd have to figure out, get Busy Brands to help out, but I don't have your email. Otherwise, I could send you a link. But maybe not legal advice could talk about the 11th court ruling. But anyway, let me see if I can finish this 4-month-old article. Alpine denies violating the order. That's the, all right, we didn't get very far. We didn't get very far. Oh, he hung up. Alpine denies violating the order, the previous cease and desist order to stop charging its customers allegedly unlawful fees. But Alpine asserted a far more sweeping argument to block the hearing. Alpine contends that FINRA has run afoul of the Constitution by exercising the federal government's power. My scroll has stopped scrolling. All right, there we go. The argument is two-pronged. If FINRA is acting as an arm of the federal government, Alpine said, then its enforcement actions breach the Appointments Clause because the president has no role in appointing or overseeing FINRA's officials. Alternatively, according to Alpine, the crooks, it doesn't say that, if the government has turned over enforcement power to the private regulator, that delegation is unconstitutional because the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission does not supervise FINRA closely. I think that's a specious argument anyway. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the gist. Alpine's arguments received a chilly reception from U.S. District Judge Beryl Walker of Washington, D.C., who denied Alpine's bid for an injunction last June. But then a motions panel of the D.C. Circuit signaled that Alpine might be onto something. Why do they let criminals continue to thrive? In a 2-1 per curiam ruling, whatever the heck that is, the panel granted the broker-dealer's emergency motion to stay the FINRA hearing until the appellate court issues a ruling in Alpine's appeal. Even more intriguingly, in concurring opinion, Judge Justin Walker credited Alpine for raising a, quote, serious argument, unquote, that FINRA's exercise of enforcement power, quote, may be a constitutional problem, unquote. That concurrence considerably raises the stakes of Alpine's appeal. As I told you last month, two high-ranking justice officials from Donald Trump's administration, former U.S. Attorney General William Barr, and former U.S. Solicitor General Noel Francisco, Cisco Kid, added to the drama with an amicus brief backing Alpine's argument. Can we put William Barr under a rock somewhere? Backing Alpine's argument that FINRA's deployment of regulatory power is unconstitutional. I wonder who paid those two guys to file those briefs. At least two other FINRA members have since raised similar constitutional arguments as they attempt to block proceedings against them. U.S. District Judge Anya Reyes of Washington, D.C., refused earlier this month to enjoin a FINRA hearing, holding that extensive briefing and oral arguments had persuaded her that FINRA officials are not state actors, but they're better actors than Meghan Markle. A third challenge before U.S. District Judge Richard Leon was filed last week. FINRA's lawyers at Gibson Dunn and Crutcher, used their new brief to the DC Circuit as an opportunity to warn of the disastrous consequences of Alpine's challenge to the securities industry's centuries-old self-policing regime. This is mind-boggling to me. They're all incestual. The industry, FINRA argued, was entirely self-regulating until the Great Depression. When Congress created the SEC, that was Joe Kennedy. He used to run the stock pools. FDR put Joe Kennedy in because he figured he's the crook. He'd be the perfect guy to establish the SEC. And to Kennedy's credit, he did a good job. At least my memory of the books I read. When Congress created the SEC with Kennedy to enforce its newly enacted federal securities laws. Since then, FINRA said its private regulation of industry members has complemented the enforcement actions by the SEC, which does not have the resources to go after every rule breaker in the industry. Neither, as FINRA has admitted, does FINRA even bother. Alpine's attempt to cripple private regulation, FINRA said, would leave investors, quote, exposed to deception, overreaching, and outright theft by unscrupulous industry members. That's from Gibson Dunn, who represents the Kramers. This is just a bunch of snakes. FINRA and the government took a tag team approach to countering Alpine's legal theories. FINRA devoted most of its brief to arguments that it simply was not an arm of the government under the United States Supreme Court's. All right, I'm not going to be able to finish that, but we'll return to that scintillating. Here, let me call him. We'll return to that scintillating. All right. Hang on. I got to get the speaker back on. It was on. All right. Audio. All right. It should be on. You should be on full-fledged. And I'm going to try to get Richard, the Lion Slayer, on with you as well.
Yeah, whoever that is.
Well, that's that. I mean, not legal advice,
Oh, okay.
but Amy. Sorry, I'm going to get somebody else to help me invite. So go ahead. You can talk. You can go.
Oh,
You can go.
I didn't know I was supposed to speak yet.
You can speak. Each time you called in, I closed my iPad and somehow that disconnected you. I don't know why it would, but it did.
Just give me 1 second and I'll get going. All right. So everyone had a long day of doing nothing, I hope, and enjoyed themselves.
Well, they had no football.
No, nothing. I played pickleball, which was fun. Been circuit court giving a death blow to the unregistered toxic lenders here, and that is a direct shot to wipe out these criminals. All right, they have no defense, is what I was told. Again, the SEC, the court system, everyone's against these characters. If they want to be in the game, they have to register. If they have to register, that means everyone gets to see what they're doing. It's an open book. The reason they do not register is because they're hiding everything. All right, that's why they're unregistered broker dealers. They're hiding all these transactions. So the people that do this stuff are, like, for example, in Wolf, WLF, and CELU, it's Yorkville Advisors, notorious debt spiral, toxic guys. In the case of Lynn, it's, Finger Motion, PXMD, BRAG, SYTA, complete murderers. And then you go down the road, you got, the Savvy Management, the Hal Minces, the Adam Long, who just got busted. I forget the other guy's name, but of course the Kramers and GTII. These guys are all going to get caught by the SEC as unregistered toxic lenders. And we'll get to see all the cases that these guys, all the companies these guys destroyed. And hopefully the Department of Justice will pick up on this. And it's a clear case of security fraud and obviously robbing people. Hal Mintz is first at the plate here, and they should 100% just go find out where he got his $10 million to buy a $10 million condo in Fisher Island. Obviously, that guy has no skills at all.
Yeah. Are you there?
I'm listening. So again, I just started with that. I can go through. I posted 900 things in my going in and out all day. I posted all the stuff with GTI. So if anyone who's live on your call has any questions about GTI, go to Twitter. I posted 500 things about GTI. The only thing I didn't post was the Charlie Mayo phone call to the company. So we'll see. I can get that up there. But I broke down the toxic note. I broke down how the company paid off the note. I posted how Alpine was caught with the concentrated short position. You have the Kramers. You got the concentrated short position. They're notorious for selling counterfeit shares. It's all right there. I posted it all on GTII. The stock looked great on Friday. Someone was obviously trying to cover. And what happens, people were telling me they couldn't buy any stock. That's what's going to happen when they go to cover and there are no sellers. Remember, I told you about that. The difference between GameStop, AMC, and potentially GTI and Finger Motion is that we are all super educated about the crime. They were not educated about it. So when this stock starts to run and when a buying's coming and there are no sellers, the thing's going to jump rather quickly. Let me just take a sip of water. All right, so you understand that. I posted that up there. I posted all the information. and, all the information that you could want on that stuff. All right. Do you have any questions, Williams, to get me going here a little bit?
Just somebody said this isn't South Korea. Somebody else said GTII 70. Another person said GTII 400.
I told you before, everyone is super educated on this. I actually posted some information back from 2021 on GTII. That's how long this is going on. A couple of people say to me on Twitter all the time, when's it going to end? And I says, what have you been here? 6 weeks, 10 weeks, a year? We're bringing down, the whole system is going down here. This is a major crime, that these guys have been looting the country for a long time. You're on the front line trying to fight this. If you don't want to fight it, move along. I can't help it. There's nothing I can say.
Apparently, Wolf just paid off some debt.
Yeah, that was last week. Yeah,
that was last week. And then before you came on, I was reading an article I found from 4 months ago about FINRA fighting an existential fight, getting help from the DOJ. But what I was amazed about, and I was reading it out loud, I didn't finish it, is Alpine FINRA hired Gibson Dunn.
Right. You broadcasted from their office one time, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I went down to. That's how I guess that wasn't my first thing. My first was in front of the SEC, but then I thought, where else can I go? I went down in front of the Gibson Dunn at the Washington Square building. And talked to him. People were walking by. I was embarrassed. People going up to Duke Siebert's. I'm sorry, Morton's. It's now Morton's. Anyway, yeah, that's what I did. And then,
so we broadcast it everywhere. There's no place left to do it.
So Ramon is asking, what are the odds GTI runs before FINGR or ZJYL or GDC? I think ZJYL is going to run in the next week or two, more likely than any at all. But you don't know. The answer is you don't know.
Based on Friday's action, I told you we were hearing that someone was around trying to buy 25 million shares from a shareholder. They told them you're waiting to get back to them. That was last week. And then all of a sudden the stock popped. Could someone who's in the network be panicking, who's short, wants to cover? This is what it looks like. It looks just like what you saw on Friday. I know it's not running up $5 yet, but this is how it looks. This is the beginning of someone trying to panic and cover. They didn't run and try to cover just to make friends. They're looking to buy stock and basically, try to see if anyone's selling. And no one was selling. People were buying. I had people saying they bought 5,000, 10,000, 12,000. Other people were saying they couldn't buy stock. They tried to, and there was no offers, which is interesting.
Well,
so, you never know which one's going to go first. That's the truth. I don't know.
Right.
I posted on Friday. I got the data on George, David, Charlie. There was 92 million shares short. We know ZJYL was, it went from 1 million to 200 million.
Call from Mike Farron.
Was right.
Right.
So we got the information. We're starting to post all the information on these things. We know MMTLP is 600 million shares. So you just got to keep pressing the bets. That's it. They'll take off, and when goes, you cash out, move on to whatever you want to find. Remember, the most important thing about all these plays is you need to have education about what you're doing. Know what's going on. Because if I was in any of these other names and they started running, I wouldn't know anything about them. I would sell it and then watch them go. Like, for example, that HOLO was $2, went to 100, went to $98 in 2 weeks? 8 trading days, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you, if you bought it at 2, everyone on this phone would have been out at 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 10, because we knew nothing about it. And then you watch it go to 100. But when you know about it, you can understand it. That's how you can let your profits run. And remember, you make sales, put good till cancel orders in, and you always make sales. The more sales you make, the smaller sales you make as it goes up, the longer you can stay in the game. So imagine you had 10,000 shares, you paid 2 and you sold it at 10, you made 80,000. Imagine you sold it all the way up. You can get an average price of $50. You didn't hit 100, but 50 on 10,000 shares. All right, that's 500,000. See the difference? If you can stay a little longer in the game once it goes, these opportunities don't happen every day. For those of you who think it does, you're out of your bird. Go find them then. Good luck. Don't listen to what we're saying.
On GTII, one guy said, I'm trying to remember who said it, Lion, chase it, but I don't know that you should chase it. That was an impressive move on Friday, but I don't think I would necessarily chase it. Busy, I don't know how to unmute Ocean Sailing. Tell me how to do it and I'll do it. All right, here's not legal advice.
Yeah, he is. He's here.
Not legal advice.
That is true.
Instant karma is going to give you a bad joke.
No. Greetings to Pickleball Man and William.
I saw a birthday card today when I was buying lunch at a Thai restaurant. For some reason, they were selling birthday cards, and it said, "Happy birthday to the pickleball player.
There you go.
You now are officially old," or something like that. In other words, if you're playing pickleball, you're old.
Porkloin posted a video about these guys.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's incredible. Those guys. You got to watch it.
You see it when you get into it, and you can see what happens. That's the game that I want to play. That's the game.
Yeah, those guys were at an expert level. That was frightening.
I was reading a bit of this article before. I don't know if you heard any of it. That's 4 months old.
Yeah,
and
I did.
Ham talked about the 11th Circuit today, and you're doing this Alpine fight.
Yes.
So maybe you have things to add right now.
I heard
that's great, Richard. Why don't you give us a comment on that?
Yeah, so I heard you. So you were leading up until the appeal, and the oral argument happened already on the appeal. Okay. And my view was they appreciated the constitutional arguments, so they let them argue about it. But I didn't really think it made a difference about the case, because the case is really limited. Because it really is, it makes a difference what you're talking about. So here we're only talking about an expedited expulsion. That's it. So an expedited expulsion is a very limited proceeding. So the court could very
2 years.
I know, but the court could very easily just say, when it comes to expedited expulsions, we decide against Alpine, and that's it, done. Has no real value beyond that. And I think their discussion about the Constitution is more about the bigger issue, because there are cases that are going on. There's that Jarkessi case in the SEC that was argued in the Supreme Court that hasn't been decided, which tests whether the SEC's own internal legal processes are okay. There was a case decided by the Supreme Court last week involving the Department of Agriculture, where the Department of Agriculture's immunity, total immunity, was rescinded for the first time, which is significant because it involved a federal statute involved for credit protection. The Department of Agriculture apparently sent out some ding on somebody's credit that was improper. The credit protection statute says that if you're violated, you can sue. So even though Department of Agriculture was immune, the Supreme Court said if there's a statute that gives somebody a right to sue, or there's another waiver, that could circumvent immunity. And that's a big step, because one of the things we want to do least speaking for me, is we'd like to see the SROs like FINRA lose their immunity. Because if they lost their immunity and they get sued and they had to participate in discovery, that's it. We're done. I mean, it's the solution. So this was the first step the Supreme Court took in kind of peeling back immunity. So I think that's a positive maneuver. In terms of GTII, I think they're going to lose this battle, being Alpine. And I think they'll have another opportunity to argue about what has been done to them. Ultimately, they're going to lose, but they're going to argue. But the bigger question is, and kind of what you were alluding to, and I've asked this before, is where does a company that makes no money get millions of dollars to pay legal fees? Where does that money come from? That's the part I have no idea. So does it come from some third party? Is it laundered money? Is it drug money? Is it, because if we recall, Alpine was found to have violated the Bank Secrecy Act thousands of times. So we know that that's designed to prevent money laundering and terrorism. So the fact that a company that makes and I don't know why, by the way, the feds aren't knocking on their door or the IRS asking, how are you doing this if you make no money? I mean, for example, if I paid no tax and I go out and spend $100 million on a yacht, I think the IRS is probably going to come knocking and say, how did you manage to do that? And in this situation with Alpine, that is the exact situation. Tens of millions of dollars in legal fees with no income. I mean, that's an interesting situation. So I hope that gets investigated. I expect, again, that Alpine's going to go down. Just the question is how long that's going to take.
Well, that's the same thing that we were saying about Savvy Management. He bought a $10 million condo. Where is he getting his money, right?
Right. By the way, somebody showed me, or I saw, that they own an interest in MMAT as Savvy Management.
They must have done some sort of debenture with them.
Something. But it was enough so they had a report. It was like 7.7%. So it was interesting to see that name, because when I see that name, it doesn't give me like fond feelings about what's coming next. And if you look at what happened to MMAT, what is it worth? A few cents at this point in time. Wherever those creatures show up, the stock goes to zero.
So let me ask you something. If Alpine's arguing that FINRA doesn't have a right to regulate them, does Alpine therefore have the right to break the law?
Well, the argument is specifically that there's an appointments clause of the Constitution, which means that if you're basically putting in an executive position in the government, and a legal position or a judge would be considered that, the executive branch, being the president, has to have hiring and firing power. And the way that the administrative law judges for both the SEC and the hearing officers for FINRA are appointed, they're not done that way. They're just appointed. So that's the argument about the appointments clause. The other argument they make is about the non-delegation doctrine, which means there are certain functions that the government can't delegate to private companies unless the government supervises the private companies. And so the argument is, if you're the government side, you say that the SEC is supervising FINRA, so we're okay, no harm, no foul. And from the Alpine side, you say the SEC is kind of about 15th down the road, because before you ever get to the SEC, FINRA will have to do like 5 hearings, and you're basically going to be adjudicated by FINRA. And if your business can't survive, you never even make it to the SEC. So they say it's not really supervision by the government. So those are the two main constitutional arguments they make. So far, the Supreme Court doesn't seem to be hugely interested in those arguments. But in the Jerkesi case that I mentioned, with the SEC, it appeared that the SEC realized they were going to lose that case, and that some of their rights were likely to be restricted in terms of how they conduct their own judicial system.
So
That's like 2 months ago.
who would be in charge of enforcing securities laws if FINRA didn't exist? And the SEC is reduced.
Yeah, I think there's a statute that requires, I think that was discussed in the Jarkessi case. In 1983 or 1984, Congress passed the statute that said if you were a broker dealer or a market maker, you had to be a member of some self-regulatory organization. Didn't have to be FINRA, but it had to be some organization.
Oh.
So FINRA wasn't there, some other organization would take its place, or Congress would have to amend the law to say you didn't have to be a member of the organization.
So Alpine, ultimately, they broke the law. That issue has to be addressed.
Yeah, I guess that was also the discussion. You can get kicked out of, like, FINRA could kick you out, but you could become a member of an exchange. You could go to a different jurisdiction and conduct business. That was actually an argument in the Supreme Court on Jarkessi about whether, when you took away basically their, because FINRA is it, right? If you're not in FINRA, what do you do? But the court was took the position as you could do something else in the market, you could do some other avenue, or you could go elsewhere. So you weren't like cut off completely. It's kind of like if you're a baseball player and you get kicked out of the major leagues, you could go to Japan. You could play baseball in Japan. You go to South Korea and play.
So,
there's other professional places.
How do domestic and foreign entities operate without being members of FINRA? There's no other oversight?
No,
There's
FINRA
no
doesn't. No, because FINRA says they don't do any oversight. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was ludicrous, by the way, that they said anything. I didn't see how that benefited them at all. For example, just to give you an example, so I had the fun of, I drafted a brief today. I was filing a reply brief on some discovery related to my arbitration. And I talked about that in my brief, that very subject. I talked about Norman. I talked about the issue of FINRA admitting that they couldn't basically account for the number of, let alone the short shares, they can't account for the number of shares, period. Let it short, long, indifferent. And so for me, it's interesting because they kind of gave it to me by laying it out there. And they did that from the very beginning. March, when they sent out the first FAQ, they didn't have to do that. And usually people that are not trying to defend themselves don't do it. If you think you're in the right, why would you even put anything out? Why give?
They're trying to say, hey, we didn't make a mistake here because we only regulate a subset anyway.
Well,
trying not to take the blame for it.
Well, from the start, I would say is we did everything correct, and thank you. That's it. Leave us alone. And that's how I would have dealt with it.
Is he a lawyer, Robert Cook?
He's not, but he has general counsel.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he testified that he has daily contact with his general counsel. So any kind of major decision, he's getting input from somebody. And he's making good money.
One guy here, I think it's Bill Cooper, but I can't remember, is asking, here it is. What's your opinion on, is it going to take years, or is there some sort of resolution in 2024?
Well, I predicted the second half of 24. That was my prediction.
That's mine.
Yeah. But that's still a guesstimate. And I hear all kinds of stuff. I know there's a lot of activity. I know that there's a lot of progress. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the SEC, not FINRA. That's the party that facilitates a resolution. And I didn't think that for a long time. So that's different than I thought FINRA being the party to facilitate the
Say that
resolution.
again. You think it'll be the SEC instead of FINRA?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the SEC as opposed to FINRA that's going to facilitate the resolution.
So it'll be after Gensler leaves.
Gensler could leave next week, right? I still don't understand why he's there in the first place. I had a conversation with somebody about this. What kind of job is that for a guy? If you're a rich guy and he played, how much money he made at Goldman? He made, 150 million bucks, whatever he made. Why would you want to?
I heard, but whatever.
Okay, whatever. It's a big number, big enough that you could relax. Why would you take a job like this where people are, rightfully or wrongfully, people are bitching at you all day? Why would you want to do that? You got to really be sick to take that kind of job, my opinion.
You're getting paid afterward. You're protecting Goldman, and you get paid afterward, or you get the Treasury Department. As
you do, but if you're worth if you're worth 9 figures and you're 70 years old, you probably don't need more money.
Is money what drives these people?
No, it doesn't. No, that's what I'm saying.
Sickness. I don't know about him, but I'm talking about the short sellers.
No, I think it is. It is. I think it is some kind of syndrome, sickness, whatever. Because why would you, in anybody in their right mind, why would they want to put themselves in that position? Really?
That guy that sold drugs or helped run drugs out of Arkansas, and then I forget the name that Tom Cruise played. I forget all the names. I saw the movie. But someone asked the question, why didn't he stop at 100 million? I guess you just get caught up in it.
I guess, but it's certainly not the money at that point in time. And it is some kind of a sickness, I think. Just like shorting.
So what are your thoughts on that 11th Circuit Court ruling, or did you study it?
I glanced at it. I didn't study it. I saw it. Made sense. I know Mark does all those cases, and I think, and I'm not speaking for him, not legal advice, obviously. Yeah, so in New York, I guess he has good success using the usury laws of New York. And in these transactions, when they're doing the loans, they're charging excessive rates of interest. And he's able to get those loans either adjusted or tossed. I know in California what happens. So California is a constitutional interest rate, 10%. So anything over 10% either has to be broker arranged, or it could be voided back down to 10%. So if somebody charged 70%, they could still collect 10%. I don't know if that's the way it is in New York, or if they prevail, they get zero. Because that would be a much better
zero. That's what Mark has been working on. They get zero. They lose.
So that's a much better outcome. Here they still get paid. They just get paid a lot less.
Well, that's why the Kramers they've been running to Virginia to do business, right?
Yeah. Right. They all foreign shop.
Richard, they ran to Virginia, but they still live in Long Island, New York. So they're still they still live in New York. So I think that's going to come bite them on the ass.
Yeah. We're looking forward to the day, right, when the feds knock on the door, right? At least I am. And I got to believe, and it's kind of what you say. It's got to be soon. And, for any reason, for a political reason, it's got to be soon. Somebody, good or bad, somebody's going to use this for political purposes. So if you go out and you bust a bunch of creeps that are ripping off retail before an election, that'll do you pretty good, I think. So I'm hoping that the election in this case spurs the feds to go bust some doors down. Hopefully it's the Kramers or John Hurry or whoever else deserves it. I don't really know, who should go down. I just have my suspicions, but anybody who deserves it.
I saw that Seth Kramer guy. He didn't look like he had any stress at all. He was cocky as hell.
Well, I know that I think Ham thought that, or you had heard word that maybe somebody had rolled. I think that you were talking about the Kramers. I'm hoping that one of these guys rolls, because if one of them rolls, then there's a lot of people that are going down. Because I assume this is a big fraternity. These guys all kind of know each other, and if they could get a sweeter deal by throwing some other guy under the bus, they'll do it.
Oh, there's no question about that. Just take a step back for today, and they put up all these sanctions against people for February, and on it was a nice list of people, and Benchmark was on there, a bunch of violations. I put one up. I forget the name out of the brokerage firm out of Utah. What's the name of that place?
Scottsdale? No.
Wilson Davis.
Oh.
Wilson Davis is just like Scottsdale. They're the same type of characters. And they were caught for naked short selling, mismarking tickets, the same nonsense. All these guys have been in business 20 years. They have no systems in place for looking for the the money laundering,
Right.
suspicious trading. Every one of their systems done nothing. Oh, we didn't implement it. We didn't do anything. 20 years in business.
Yeah, I
And
told
it's the
somebody.
same people all the time.
I told somebody this because I know there's a tech company that designed the software for insider trading. So for the SEC to detect insider trading, they have a software program that's able to kind of dig in and do it. And the name of the company that designs the software is Palantir. And I suggested to somebody that if they can design the software to detect insider trading, then why can't they design the software to detect short selling, naked short selling,
Of course they have.
whatever? Yeah. Right.
Richard,
I mean,
Richard,
I-
I can
Yes,
show you
sir.
insider trading. I can show you it. Oh, I don't need a computer to show anybody that one. That's an easy one.
I know.
Well, you can tell. I can tell if Johnson & Johnson's going to buy XYZ on Monday next week. Monday next week, you can see the option buying 3 days before. You can see it all from no outstanding, no open interest. It just loads up, and then all of a sudden, bang! It happens. It happens all the time. It's very easy to see.
Just to clarify, so
Who
I have a
called you
friend.
Ricky?
I know. So I did a live stream last night with a world-renowned neuroscientist, which is an old-time friend of mine. I knew him since we were kids. So he was calling me Ricky. So I'm being called Ricky today. So that's what he used to call me. So that's where we go.
Lose
I
that
like Rick.
number. I wonder
Well,
if you
I just
told
wanted- I
jokes
wanted
back
to-
then.
I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. If you go to on Twitter, I put up a list of crimes that it's just Benchmark was in there. They're tied to Lind Partners. They got a bunch of violations. It's just amazing that these guys are still in business. And Interactive Brokers made the list again. They had like a bunch of crimes. I couldn't even list them all. I said, go read it yourself.
So how come these guys
This
can?
guy's stock is $90. His stock is. He's rewarded for being a criminal. Unbelievable. It's just remarkable.
In what industry can you be like penalized 50 times and still be able to conduct business? In what business?
Well,
Brokerage.
there's a good story out today about on Zero Hedge. Cumming Engines was fined $1.5 billion for changing the software so that the Ram trucks can pass the emissions test or something like that. And they got
1.5
fined.
billion. How much did they fine Goldman Sachs for violations?
$3 million for slaughtering people.
Yeah, isn't the obvious answer just disgorge all profits plus?
Well,
Whatever you made, and then we fine you on top of that. And then there's no.
I loved how Mark Bazile fights, and he does a fantastic job. But his settlements with two companies, and I'm not blaming him, with HPIL and VNUE, they settled, they disgorged the profits, but the only profits they look at is the note, the convertible note. They don't look at all the profits that are the counterfeit selling that happens because that note is there to put a damper, to put protection to the prime brokers. And
I'm sure that's difficult.
people just don't recognize what's really going on.
Well, it could be just difficult and costly to prove because you'd have to
It's
hire.
very hard to prove.
Yeah, you have to hire an expert. You just spend a
Well,
lot of money.
and as Mark said, it's also that in those two cases, the CEOs decided to settle. And
Yeah, so I was going to
wanted
say
to go further.
I was going to say it's always the client's choice in the end.
Yeah.
So if they don't want to wait,
Well,
then
they
you
don't
can't-
have the money to go further, probably.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well,
It's
let's
unfortunate.
remember, William, you're fighting people that's stealing a lot of money. They hire the best lawyers. Look how hard it is, right?
Yeah.
So,
We need the government to be on our side.
not legal advice. I read, as I'm sure most people here did, I read Elon Musk's question. If no one was defrauded and no one lost money and no one was harmed in the borrowing of money by the Trump organization, who gets the fine? Who gets the $355 million?
Should go back to
Who does it
the
pay out to?
well, it should go back to the government car. I think the general fund. So, listen, I'll take it.
Unbelievable. There's a guy on here, Dave. He's a truck driver, and I'd love to hear his opinion on what's going to happen to New York City.
Don't deliver. Don't stand together. Don't deliver. Shut it down. Let them
What is
ride.
that? What is that supposed to be implemented? That policy.
It had started today.
But they're trying to drag. They want to block Washington D.C. also, not deliver there.
All right. Well,
It's
Wow.
time for these politicians to, feel the pressure from the people.
Wow.
They're not listening to the people, so let the
Wow.
truckers shut it down. That's it.
I agree. Busy Brands, by the way, had a great space today.
I didn't know about it.
Johnny Tobacco. I thought that was interesting. Johnny Tobacco. I'd heard stories about how much. So I think, let me say it this way: NextBridge is trying to determine how many short shares there are above what there should be. I'd heard a particular number. I'd heard that they had, and it's a process, an ongoing process. So I'd heard they'd reach something like 20 million by now. So, and if you know, FINRA said there were 2.65 million domestic. They didn't say it exactly like that, but they said there was 2.65 million, according to their analysis, short shares that were stuck.
Then they made their analysis useless by saying we can't cover.
Right.
So where are they getting the 20 million from? Voluntary disclosure?
Yeah. So here's how it goes. So he said, this is Johnny Tobacco. He said that NextBridge, there's a statement where that they were approached by foreign short market makers or whoever, hedge funds, asking about buying shares. So and I'd heard that before. And he said that was somewhere between 11 and 15 million, something like that. So those are shorts looking to buy shares to cover. He says on top of that, and I don't know what it is, but publicly available, if you know where to look, apparently the SEC is required to publish the data that we could use to figure out who bought what, when, and where. But you got to know exactly what to look for.
Who's supposed to do that? Is it an organization that's
No.
appointed by the president and had dedicated powers
No,
from the
No,
government?
I
The
think,
Constitution?
I don't know anything firsthand. I believe NextBridge hired two, like CIA type guys who are going through the data, and in their process of going through the data, they've been able to determine something on the order of 20 million additional short shares.
Why wouldn't NextBridge just focus, because they have the list, just focus on the 5 brokerage firms with the largest ownership? I mean, that's where it is. It's in 5 or 8 brokerage firms.
Yeah, I don't have contact with like McCabe or whatever.
Yeah.
My opinion, I agree. I just pick, the top 5.
Fidelity,
You can figure it out.
Ameritrade.
I've actually, how many,
Wells
I can't
Fargo.
tell you, I can't answer the question, but if you were to guess of the I know the answer, but it's a confidential piece of information in my arbitration. So I can't answer it, but I'll be interested to see what your answer is.
What's the question?
How many of the MMTLP shareholders, 65,000, how many are in Fidelity?
I would guess a majority.
I can't answer, but okay. I asked the question. I would say, I think I could say,
But your question, what's interesting about your question, there's Fidelity, but there's also Fidelity Prime Brokerage. So there could be a settlement issue. People could have their accounts elsewhere.
yeah, I find it interesting because Fidelity is obviously in the arbitration, so I can only say certain things. I could say whatever I know outside the arbitration. I can't say within the arbitration. But I maintain, you know, I've been public about this. I maintain that there's a letter, there's an email from Fidelity, November 15th, 2022. So that's 3 weeks before the U3 halt, that says they can't sell MMTLP shares. So I threw that out. I said, I got it. It says it. I don't know how you could have then sold me shares on the 6th, 7th, and 8th, especially after the 2nd. The SEC and FINRA say there's a fraud alert, and they blue sheet everybody on the 5th. I don't see how you could be.
If Fidelity is the company that called Jessica Hopper, if in fact Jessica Hopper was the person who stopped trading.
I don't know, but I think they're taking the position that there is no such letter.
And you threw it away?
No. It's not thrown away. Actually, it's now before. But they said it didn't exist. They took the position it didn't exist, and now I've shown them it did. And so it will be interesting to see.
How can they lie? Oh, they're lawyers.
You know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. It could be, you know, their client doesn't give them the document. You have no control.
You lawyers are so kind to each other.
Well, this is the law firm that Ham worked with.
Dewey, Cheatham, and Howard, the other one.
The other one. The one that he taught. The one he taught to go after me.
Morgan Lewis Bacchus?
Yes. The guy's out of San Francisco.
So
I taught them well.
I know.
You think it could, as I agree with you, you could get some sort of agreement on a settlement by the end of the year. What are the next steps that you see? What are the pressure points? What are the...
William, let me just stop for a second.
Right.
If you think it's only 20 million shares that these guys, that it's been overshorted,
they'll do it tomorrow.
they would have fixed it a long time ago.
I agree. I agree. No, I didn't say it was only 20 million. I just said they were up to it. Actually, they said if you add the 20 and the 15, you're almost at 40. Just kind of like easy peasy. But I don't know anything. Okay, Center. Oh, that's a long time.
What?
I just reading.
He sent you the link.
XZ, what's that silly name? I can't remember the initials. XYZL?
ZJYL?
Thank you. That should be exciting. And Mr. Ham, you mentioned that it was Chinese New Year and the market was closed last week. I think you said that.
I don't see where you're getting that.
Yes, the 16th, the market opened back up, the 16th to 17th.
I see. So is that good? Is that good for us?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I gathered by you throwing it out there that it was positive.
Yeah, I've been following Chinese New Year for a while now. Yes, it's good for us.
The year of the dragon.
Whenever the Chinese, they all travel and they go back to their families. So it's like it's not like they take off for 10 days. They all travel everywhere. They go back to their families wherever they may be. People in the north go south, north, wherever it may be. So these people just, when they get back, that's when things happen. So see what happens.
The other thing, and we've been kind of fighting this, I think, and obviously not financial advice, but the Chinese stocks have been just hammered as they've been just killed. At some point in time,
they started to follow U.S. security laws.
Yeah.
And there's derivatives. Once you put derivatives and other things on, things unwind. They know how to make people panic.
Yeah.
Their investors are complete novices. They are very novice investors.
Yeah, they have something called, and I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's called a snowball, and it's some kind of derivative, and it basically requires, I don't know, actually, I don't know what it requires, but if it goes bad, you lose all your money. And it was very popular, and a bunch of people lost all their money, and that kind of continued, that contributed to kind of the downward spiral of the market. But what I was going to say, at some point in time, that market's going to flip. And when that market
started
flips
today or yesterday, the plunge protections started coming in, apparently.
Yeah.
What happens is the people in China, they love to gamble. And when things go against them, they take they sell them out and leave with whatever they have left. That's how they think. That's their mentality.
Well, I'm thinking
Right.
that market's going to turn, and all those Chinese securities are going to, get a nice big boost. Not financial advice, of course. I watch like I watched like Alibaba, and that was like a $350 stock at one point in time. Now it's like 70 in the 70s. That's a huge.
It bounces back over. Yeah, well, the government went after them. So let me tell you about Alibaba and Tencent for a second. FingerMotion is one of the competitors to Alibaba and Tencent about the telephone top-up business. From what I heard many years ago, is that FingerMotion was selected to actually build out the new platform so that people can top up their cell phone minutes. What I heard was Alibaba and Tencent were buying the minutes from the telecoms and buying billions of dollars worth of this stuff, these telecom minutes. Billionaires were buying it like a phone card, selling them offshore, like let's say Singapore, and they were just happy to get back the 99 cents, and they were getting their money laundered out of China. That is why FingerMotion was created and exists, to stop that. So that business of Alibaba and Tencent doing the top-up business, as Finger grows, they will become the top player in the game, and Alibaba and Tencent will slowly be grinded out of that business.
I watched.
And the Chinese government doesn't like change. So if FingerMotion is going by the rules, they will allow you to grow and become as big as possible, as long as they obey the rules, which they are. And because they obey the rules, they get these other add-ons now. Now they do the text messaging. Now they're selling insurance. Now they get the data. So obviously, these guys got great ties to the Chinese government. And as long as they play ball and do it properly, they will become a monster.
I watched William's interview, and I thought it was great, by the way. Your interview of Martin.
It wasn't
and then
it was Martin that was great.
Usually that's a mutual thing. So you could take credit for giving a good interview, and you can give Martin credit for being a good interviewee.
I guess that might be right. Yeah,
it works well.
Richard, the only thing I asked him to say was two questions, and he didn't answer. He didn't answer any of them.
I think one of them I asked before the interview, and he didn't want to talk about. But the other one I should have asked.
The thing that struck me about that was interesting to me was he referenced a project that was, I think, coming out, and they have weird, or at least in my mind, their fiscal year and their quarters. That was hard to understand how that calendar worked. I think the end of February is the end of a fiscal or a quarter. I don't know which one, but Mr. Chen indicated they had some new project that was coming out in the March quarter, and he was looking forward to it. And I thought that was very optimistic. The other thing was I heard another interview subsequent to Bill's interview, and they were talking about expanding outside of the Chinese market too.
To Vietnam and to Thailand, right?
Yeah. So I thought that was great news. One, because it expands their their market, but two, it also served as kind of a protection. If they got kicked out of any one market, they would still have other markets they could do business in. I thought that was a very wise move.
Listen, doing the telephone business, the Chinese government has let these guys be entrenched since 2018. So if they were going to have a problem, it would have been over a long time ago. It would never be this deep into it. You're talking 6 years now. These guys have the inner workings into the telecoms, their insurance. They've been doing everything proper. If there's anything that would have been negative, they've been shut down a long time ago.
I think that's
You know what's interesting is the MMTLP crowd. If you look, they say that the shills are particularly out, that they're like running rampant right now, that they're really frightened and concerned. And so, you know, be aware of it. And if you see nonsense, point it out so people can deal with it. But I think Johnny Tobacco was on a space last night with, let's say, short supporters. And there were about 900 people that listened to it over the course of something like 7 hours. And that's a lot of short interest. And all those people that were on that space are all people that show up in our spaces trying to kind of throw us off. And
I was on a call when Ham was in purgatory with Junk Savvy. It went on for 7 hours, and Johnny Tobacco came on. And I tell you, it's a huge problem, but it seems like a simple problem. There's just no will to finish it.
Yeah, one thing that needs to be changed, I heard this and it's an issue, is those short reports, they can put them out during the quiet periods. So, you know, there's a period of time before and after earnings when the officers and directors can't say anything, but not restricted from filing short reports, and you can't comment on the short report. I saw a CEO bring that up as an issue. I really think that's something that needs to be changed so that if someone's attacking your company, you should be able to address it no matter what time it is.
Well, I think Ham will tell you, but he explained to me, I still can't quite get it, but they never let the market stay closed 3 days. Close the market for a week. See what happens.
Isn't that the same?
That's why they leave it open all the time. It's continued net settlement. It's like a shark. It needs to keep swimming or it'll die, right? So it keeps moving. So they never shut it down, because if they shut it down, it's musical chairs. Now everyone needs a seat. They can't do it.
Doesn't that come from the banks? That the banks, after the Depression, they thought if they kept them closed more than 2 days, they were concerned that might spur a run.
That's the MO.
Yeah. Listen, I'd like a short piece.
In this day and age, they should be able to settle trades. They can't do it. They all know it. The mess is huge. My friend was an attorney, said we were fighting this in 2000. We thought it was big then. Can you imagine what it is now?
Yeah, absurd. Don't you think it should be T+0?
It doesn't make a difference if it's T+-1. They have to enforce settlement. That's it. And if you're caught, you go to jail. That's it.
Yeah. I used your line today in my brief, just to let you know.
It's always the same pattern.
No settlement. Still no settlement.
That's it. They don't settle anything. A friend of mine went to Paris and he bought a cup of coffee on his credit card. He said before he left, he got a text message that his payment was settled already. They traded it. They went back from the euro. It went from the charging it to a euro to the US dollar and settled before he even finished the cup of coffee.
Oh, I have transactions on my phone that I will get the notification from my credit card company that I completed the transaction before I complete the transaction. I get the notification before I actually complete the transaction.
And Wall Street does it. When I buy a share and I sell it, they have no idea what happens. No one knows what's going on.
They know what happens.
Well, William, we have to say this. That's why.
They know.
We know they know what's going on. They know the numbers. They know how massive everything is.
I mean, if you listen to Jeremy Frommer, he says the computers on the SEC side can't keep up with the computers on the other side. I don't.
That's nonsense.
I don't know.
It really,
It's
nonsense.
just software, isn't it?
Yeah, just buy. I mean, it's computer power. It's purchasable.
You're making fun of Ace. Ace doesn't. I guess that's because one time I said, "Hey, Ace, stop stealing my moves." But I was just joking.
I don't know if
those young guys, they always like to throw jabs at you, William. Those youngsters.
Who won? I didn't see the Super Bowl. Who prevailed in that game?
Yeah, no.
Are you digging it in?
No, I really
Yeah.
didn't. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know.
You're making
So-
Ace of.
Ace and
That's
Ham
rich.
and their football seasons pretty amazing.
Do you
Pretty
see
am-
this one shit credit card company is
Yeah.
buying another shit credit card company
Yep.
for $35 billion, and I guess it's going to make all their receivables suddenly good.
No, but it'll make Discover shareholders very happy tomorrow, I would think.
And it'll make it too big to fail.
Isn't what usually happens is Discover will go up and Capital One will go down? That's kind of usually
Yes.
what happens.
Capital One it was a money-making machine forever.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. If you get stale, you got to make an acquisition. And Richard, if you take a company like I think let's say NVIDIA, I'm just making it's got rewarded by Wall Street for their new chips, but NVIDIA needs to go out and just start acquiring and make acquisitions or take stakes in other companies that will make it continue to keep grow. So when one segment dies, they make it somewhere else. To me, that's what I'm watching in a company like that. Most companies do nothing. For example, I'll give you an example of a company that did nothing. I'll look at it was Peloton. Peloton was the health company with the bicycles, and they went to treadmills. They should have been buying things. Their stock price gave them the access to everything at the time. The shorts were getting squeezed. They never took advantage of it. And that's why it came back to earth.
Yeah. NVIDIA earnings this week. And, that thing's gone up like 800%. I mean, something ridiculous. So don't usually stocks that do that, don't they usually, at some point, don't they revisit their prior lows usually?
Well, I think that's going to happen I think that the shorts are going to get squeezed again into earnings. Once the earnings come out, that's when it'll sell off. It's tough to stand. It's not going to just collapse from the earnings. I think after the earnings out, that's when people will sell it.
Yeah.
But right now, I think they're going to keep squeezing them. They have them dead. So why not? Why keep going for it?
Yeah. Microcomputer, that company was got over 1,000, and then it had earnings and it dropped 20%. I don't think earnings were bad.
Richard,
just dropped 20%.
I was told to buy that stock at $225.
Wow.
My friend told me about it. It went down 30. I called him back. I said, "You sure you got the right stock?" He says,
Yes.
"I'm telling you, it's going."
Yeah.
He told me it was going to 700, but
He
it
was
went
too
down
conservative.
30. So I was watching it. I didn't say anything about it. And he just goes, "Can you believe this thing?" It just kept going. It just didn't stop. And then I saw it over 1,000. I said, "Oh, yeah." But that's how they go. That's the short squeeze. That's what happens.
Yeah, that thing was incredible. Really.
That's a short squeeze. They squeeze. That's why I keep telling you, put your good till cancel orders out. Pick numbers. When a stock goes, we don't know what the top is going to be. You make your sales, and then if it crashes, you know what? You can always be a buyer on the dip, or you just go away from it. That's the way to play.
No update on the capybara.
Don't
I think Mark's still waiting for the judge, and the judge, again, unfortunately, you just have to wait for the judge. There's not much you can do about it.
Right. I asked him about that. He said you have to wait for the judge. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, you can bitch, but then you don't want to be with that judge. But what I was going to say, what you just said though was really important, because I think it's really hard. So if you rode that company up to 1,000, because it went to like 1,040, and you didn't get out, and let's say you bought in as it's near the top, you got killed because it dropped down to 820.
The hardest thing is selling.
if you look at it, the SEC is always concerned about short squeezes because they know retail is a bunch of morons and they chase these things. And when they do collapse, they get caught. I've been trying to teach you the opposite. If you do buy at the bottom and it starts to run, never chase it through the top. I never chase. And when it's running, you make the sales. That's all you have to do. That's
Yes,
what
sir.
the professionals do. If you want to be part of the retail group that gets slaughtered, then go chase and go good luck. That's how
Yes.
I look at it. I never chase anything because I never know. No one knows when they're going to stop running, and I never chase them.
Yeah, somehow we retail believe that we could like catch it as it goes because it's not moving very fast. The price is not really changing at some amazing level running by computers, like 1,000 computers are running that thing as fast as they can. We think somehow we're going to get a trade exercised at the price we want after the fact. And when you watch those tickers run, when they're running, there is no way. There's no way. Complete guesswork where you're going to get it.
Well, and you got to be happy with your trade. You got to get out while there's volume, and when the price is reasonably where you want it, just be happy with your trade. There'll be another trade.
Yeah, I guess that's the feeling is because I'm speaking from that position. We really don't know. There's going to be another trade. We know.
No, you don't know. That's true. But
intellectually,
lifetime, yeah. I've lived long enough. There always seems to be another opportunity at some point. I don't know.
Even since we've been looking at, obviously Finger Motion and GTII, just talking about that, all the ones that came up alongside. And again, you mentioned it, both of you guys mentioned it. You could stand there like a statue and not make money, or you can, if you got the ability to, you can make money while you're waiting.
It's hard to sell, though. If you believe your story is that it's going to squeeze, it's hard to say. It's just hard to sell.
Yeah.
So
I told you what to do for the 1,000th time, William. If you have 1,000 shares, you pay $2 and the stock's $9. You sell 100 at $9, 100 at $12, 100 at $19, 100 at $30, 135, and you say, "Oh my goodness, I sold 600 shares. I got all my money and then some. I have 400 shares. Let it go. Let's see what happens." You could sell 100 at 100, 100 at 200 if it keeps going. And that's the way you could stay longer. You'll make more money selling the 400 shares at a higher level than you did on the 600 that you got all your money back
and
on.
It's free.
It's free. No headache. You don't have to worry about it. If the world ended and it went to zero, you could say, "Wait, I got all my money out. I got a free shot at this, going for a home run swing." That's when I do it.
So not legal advice. Jenny L saying hi to you.
Hi, Jenny L. Always like hearing from you, and best wishes, of course.
And to Ham.
Yeah,
but I don't think Ham's spoken with her.
Yeah, I've heard other professionals talk, as you talk about the same way, playing for free. The real pros I hear, they just say, take the risk off the table. Just make sure you could live for another day. If you could live for another day, then that's great.
I'm going to give you an example of getting your money off the table. I've been putting my family, my cousins, we all own Finger Motion, GTII. So I started buying GDC. I buried my one daughter at 380 and it pulled back. My other daughter put some money into her account and I bought her in at 218 the other day. 218. The stock pre-market jumped to 260. So trying to protect her, I sold her stock out at 260. I went to the bathroom, I came back, and they offered the stock at 193, and I bought it back. So she has the same position. She made 40 plus cents on her position, right? 193, take away 40, she owns it at 153 now. And now she can sit there, and she's perfect. By accident, I did the whole trade.
This article, by the way, was written by Anna Frankel. This is the one I was reading. She also wrote the article on the 11th circuit ruling, but I couldn't find that article anywhere. It must be behind a wall.
I don't know if I answered your question, by the way. You asked me a question about GTII. I kind of rambled on. I don't know if it answered your question, but
did I ask it or
like 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago?
So you rambled on.
I rambled on. I don't
I'm a
even know
little
if I answered.
more interested in MMTLP from what you said. I'm interested in both, but you said they figured out 20 million.
That's what Johnny Tobacco said.
But I wonder, based on how much of the data that's out there. In other words, if they have
Yeah, I don't
20
know.
million
Yes.
out of, you know, I don't
They
know,
didn't say-
5,000 shareholders, that means they have a lot more to go.
Yeah, they didn't say like they've covered. I asked this question, by the way, so it's a good question you asked too. I said, "Are you like 5% done through this?" And I didn't get an answer. So I don't know how far through their search they are, because then you're right. You could kind of extrapolate. They're 5% done. You multiply that number by 20, and you have like a rough number, right?
And what's your opinion? Because a lot of people ask me this question. I've been pretty firm on my answer, but how would you answer? Should people move their shares of MMTLP / NextBridge placeholder over to AST and actually get shares of NextBridge?
If I know that NextBridge wants that done for multiple reasons, and if I could, I would. I'm stuck because I'm in an arbitration with Fidelity, and my concern is if I moved the shares out of Fidelity, that they would say, well, you have no interest against Fidelity anymore and whatever. So I'm stuck. But if I were not stuck, I would move my shares to AST.
Are there cons to moving your shares?
Myself?
Or for an individual, are there pros to leaving your shares with your brokerage firm?
I think there were concerns.
On the obverse, are there cons to moving your shares?
Yeah, I think there were concerns that were expressed early on, maybe till today, that if you moved your shares, you might lose a right to participate in some settlement. I think that was kind of pure speculation at the time for that position. I don't really think it makes a difference. I would think that if it's resolved, it's going to resolve for everybody. And if it doesn't resolve, it's going to not resolve for everybody. The only hesitation I would say in the Dole Pineapple case, when they resolved that, they figured it out, and they figured out how to make up numbers. Let's say they figure
$4, I think.
Let's say they figure there's 100 million legitimate shares,
right,
and 15 million non-legitimate shares.
Yeah.
The judge said, the 100 million, we're going to take care of you. The 15 million, you're going to go back to your brokers. You deal with your brokers. Yeah. So I don't know if that's how it's going to be in this case. They're going to say 165 million, we're going to deal with you, and the other 900 million, you go back to your brokers and deal with them. You have a right to collect, but maybe not through us.
So if people get shares of NextBridge, has the system done what it was supposed to do for those people, and they no longer have a claim?
No, I think we still have an IOU and a diluted share. We were supposed to get, we're supposed to get non-diluted 1-for-1. We don't have that.
Right.
And as soon as I think TradeStation admitted that they didn't have the required number of shares, that acknowledged there was dilution for everything.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it. But
would you agree with me that if there's a settlement financial, there'll probably be an opportunity you can say, you know what, I want to take the cash. I don't want to have the shares. My guess is there'll be some mechanism to do that just to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know, but probably, whatever, when it comes to time, whatever can get it done, probably for the cheapest way for the brokers and the government, I would think.
Well, just remember this. They're going to do it in a gray market, meaning they don't want anybody to see it, whatever it is.
Yeah, they don't want to disclose.
You guys can talk about it between each other, but they're never going to put it out there and say, hey, let's let people see this.
Right. Unfortunately,
a lot of people who are looking for their money are just going to say, screw it, get me out. And that's what's going to happen.
And they probably rely upon that. I was going to say, unfortunately, I got to deplane. So
all right.
I appreciate you both.
Thank you very much for joining, and we'll
have a great night.
You too, and I look forward to a great week.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Everybody be well. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's get off the legal stuff. You're putting me
right.
out. I'm not.
All right, now
that's-
you can get
So
going.
anyway, I put up all the information about GTI. I recapped from 2020 to today. Everything out there, you know, the SEC, the truck 13 times, going back in time. Everyone who's on this call who's got a GTI position who wants to make noise, I put up the number. Call the SEC at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Get 20, 50, 100 people all call at the same time. And you'll just, they'll know who we are. We used to do it all the time. Don't ask me for help. In your words, I gave you all the information. You can determine what you want to say and give them a shout. All right. I've always told everyone to do that, William. Use your own words, what you see, and
Yeah,
tell them to stop
I
the fraud.
agree,
That's it. And maybe you get paid. Maybe they pay us. I doubt it. I've been trying to get paid for 5 years already on reporting crimes. They never even answer. Nothing. It's just amazing. They pay the short sellers off all the time. The longs, we never get anything. They don't even acknowledge us. The truck's there 13 times. I reported $27 trillion worth of frauds. I didn't even get an envelope and a jawbreaker. Nothing. Zero. Just give me anything. But what else did I want to say? I reported on that up and down the ladder so everybody can see what's going on there. So it's right there. So don't say we don't talk about it. The stock, I told you before, we're looking for a sign from the gods. Well, something happened on Friday. There's your sign. Is it going to continue? Let's see what happens. We need the brokerage firms, Wall Street, the SEC, somebody to force the issue. And whether it's a court system or the FBI, somebody's got to force the issue there. Or the company has to do something to get fundamental value in there to make a change. That's it. There's nothing
Well,
else
I
I can
didn't
say
know
about
that. Jenny just said John Hurry was trying to buy Wilson Davis for.
I know they're tied together. I knew that. I heard that before.
Unbelievable.
These guys want to. They just taken over the low end of the market and just basically just robbed everybody. They robbed themselves. They rob each other. It's just insane. The whole thing is insane.
So Hurry gave Wilson Davis $4 million, and he started. I don't know what WD clearing is. I'm not thinking clearly, but he started clearing, and the SEC didn't allow it to go through. I don't know what WD means.
What that means to me is that they are following John Hurry and shutting his criminal ass down. That's what's going to happen here. His days of trying to play in the equity markets are going to be very well observed. And his moving money, whatever money he has left, you got to be insane to be doing business with them. That's what happens.
KYP says hello.
Well, welcome back.
She
KYP.
says she's not as scared of you.
I hit a guy today off his bald head with a rocket, KYP. I have a new paddle, and I think as you can see, it's pretty juiced. It's got a lot of power in it. And that poor guy was bent over by the net, and I just drilled him off the top of his head.
That's interesting, Matt K. I didn't know that New York allows fracking. But that must be a new thing because the Marcellus.
They tried to keep it away from the water basin. I remember that from years ago, from when I first saw the thing on fracking in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And they were worried about it going into the water system.
It's really unlikely that it does. But anyway, you have Ohio and Pennsylvania making a ton of money, and New York said no. But maybe it's changed.
They were worried about the water basin, something about that. I watched.
That's for the pizza.
HBO.
You guys have the best pizza because of your water.
That's because we use toilet water in it. That's why. Everyone always says it's the water. Here it is. It's got to be the toilet water. Anyway, what else do we have? Anything else? Because I'm going to go watch some television and go relax.
Let me see. No, I'll go through the end and then sign off, but you don't need. Yeah, ZJYL, GDC. Yeah, you talked about them all.
I put the data up. The data on ZJYL I put up. The data on GDC I got on Friday late. That was 92 million shares. I had some friends buying it based on, I expected to go back up. And, that's basically it. While I was looking at that, GTI took off. Finger motion did nothing on Friday. GTI took off. Again, the market to me months ago was telling me Finger was going to go. Finger got attacked by capybara and the animals. And you know what? Maybe GTI goes first now. I have no idea. We'll see tomorrow. Let's see if someone's folding and panicking. Remember, people, don't chase. If you do want to buy it, you buy 20% if it starts to run. 10% of your position. You want to buy 1,000 shares, you buy 200 shares, 100 shares, and you wait for pullbacks. Never chase, because if the stock spikes to $1, it drops quick because somebody just covered and walked away. At least you'll be able to buy the dip, right? So be smart about how you play.
That's good
All right,
advice.
there's always another play, so be careful. Don't chase. Make sure you're doing. Remember, GTI doesn't have the same fundamentals as finger motion. Excuse me, finger motion's got a $5 target by benchmark. They had their analysts write a report on it, so there is fundamental value there. It's selling below that. Be careful what you're doing. Make sure you read up, educate yourself on the different plays. They're all different plays. And I'm not here recommending 50 stocks. I'm just bringing it to your attention. TELO, I brought it to your attention. It went down from 7 down to 4.5, and then it went to 23. All right, that's the end of the conversation. If you're still long, hold on. Whatever. If you missed the run, you're a buffoon. Right? That's how Wall Street. That's how we would talk to you. If you came to me and told me you bought a stock at 6 and it went to 23 and you didn't sell any, within 4 days, it's only been trading 6 days and you didn't sell it, don't ask me about it again. All right, there's no love coming your way about that, holding on to it. That's called being an idiot. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. If you've been listening to us, we've been always telling you to what? Take profits. If you sold 50% of it, that means if you made 6 points on it and you paid 6, that means whatever you have left, you own for free. That's the best trade on Wall Street, playing for free. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to go watch Community, that old show on Netflix about the kids going back to college. I like that show also.
All right.
Anyway, listen, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Ham.
You got it.
David,
Call ended.
that's really interesting to me. I've never been to Hunts Point Market, but that would mean a lot of produce would go bad. A lot of fish and meat. All right, I'll try to let it go so you guys can watch whatever show that was. Oh, links to these on my Twitter. I don't know. I don't know how to do that. One time all right, I'll try to learn how. I don't know how to do any of this. I need a producer. Need a producer or a wife. But there's no such thing as wives anymore. Wow, all the restaurants in the Northeast, maybe. If it's already loaded, it's theft to keep the load. Yeah, that makes sense. You just can't, you have to refuse the pickup, I guess. Up to the halt on MMTLP. Definitely, they're counterfeit from them. I own Torchlight. I wish I had not sold it because I owned a lot of it. I'd have a lot of shares of MMTLP. Presidentures. Tell Celeste that her jokes are better than yours. I don't think I can't confirm it. I think it's a meaningless. Well, maybe it's not meaningless, but I don't think earnings are what's driving ZJYL. rumored 200 million short position with a pre-split average price of $20 to $25. So I guess that means that it's $1 to $1.50. They're way underwater. They're way underwater. Why did Washington have problems sleeping? Well, he could lay while he lied. He lied while he laid. Trader Zero was justifying 290. Wow, let me think that through. Trader Zero was justifying 290 by saying 16 cents a barrel, which, I mean, where do you come up with that number? 16 cents a barrel. I've never heard of a company being bought for well, I mean, maybe that it's happened, but that's all right. Richard's not here. MMTLP won't pop. MMTLP, well, Ham thinks it'll be a lot of gray market trading. I think in order to get the problem resolved without disclosing the existence of the massive counterfeit share position and to get participation from, that's the one question I have, is how do you get 100% participation? How do you get protection from a class action suit? My opinion is the broker dealers and the prime brokers are not going to want to pay over a ton of money without getting protection, a release for the, and I don't see how they can get it because it's not in bankruptcy. So it's not like you get 3/4 of the class to approve it and the rest have to go along. Anyway, that's an issue for later down the road. But my opinion is to get the participation levels they want, to get the majority of all parties to agree. With MMTLP, they're just going to come with high and inside, or high and outside, or high and right at the umpire's head. I think MMTLP will be a high number, and then that's it. GTII, the chart, the action on Friday looked tremendous, but it makes me nervous because they've had a weekend now to, they've had a weekend to get a lot of calls that you better close out the positions, otherwise we're buying you in. Or what I think, they've had a weekend of organizing how they're going to fight it downward. But the action Friday, GTII is waking up, and we'll have to see what happens this week. I think it's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. I would say you're going to hate my answer. I'm going to say MMTLP gets its settlement first. But GTII was good action today, and all you need is a buy-in, and It's a good question. $43 years. Yeah, I never thought. Whoever thought 40 years of work would go by? I didn't hide ocean sailing. I don't know what I'm doing. Remember that guy that was on our calls? He always had winning trades. Was it David something? No. Anyway, he disappeared in a flame out of drama, but he was a whatever you call a wrench guy. Will MEGL rip again? I don't know. I'll write it down. I don't really know much about it, but I think most of these, unless you know the story really well, let me, I can look at a chart and see, but you got to get out. You got to at least get your money out. David Lee, something like that, a name like that. I think he blocked ocean sailing. Then he left, and he blocked a couple of other people. MEGL. Oh, Magic Empire. Let me get a longer term chart. Oh wow, they've really destroyed that one. I wouldn't trust that one, Vin. I don't have a lot of data here. I don't know what's going on, but that thing looks like it came public at 260 or something. It's hard to read over there. 240, and then they just shoom shoom, and it ran up, and then they spent 4 months driving down. It had a pop up, and then they spent 9 months driving it down. It had a pop up, and now they're driving it down again. I think they really have that one under control. So, but it does seem like they've had at least 1, 2, 3 major moves up. So maybe you'll get another one. But that's one to take your profits and then that. Although, if you just look at the last just February, it's higher lows, higher highs. They're breaking through the 50-day. And they had a pretty high volume day, although it was up and down. I mean, it looks a nice little setup in the short run. Maybe it goes to $1.26. But I don't know that I would. Yeah, it wasn't me, but you said somehow in YouTube something or other. I go into settings, community. I'll go do it. I'll try to do it tonight. I've never learned how to do that, so I might be able to find out who did it. I think it was David Lee. I think that was the guy's name. Yeah, I probably won't do that, but maybe I can see on the YouTube studio, that's what you called it. What Ham just said, that's what he said. That's all he said. 92 million naked short. I talked to another investor who feels confident on ZJYL. Yeah, maybe this week, maybe next week, something like that. And what I get from him is that if ZJYL goes up, this one will follow maybe at the same time or directly thereafter. What is the G's? Let me see what the G's is. I don't remember what the G's is for. Isn't that a Pretender song? Take you upstairs and show you what the hole is for. It's a bad lyric. She had such a great voice. Well, Eric, I think there's 2 or 3, 4 things that China is going to have difficulty with. One is their population isn't young. Well, it is young, but it's not as young maybe as they need. They don't have all the resources they need, like oil and water, although they have plenty of each. I think there's a lot of malinvestment in China, but before we get all cocky about that, I think there's a lot of malinvestment in the United States. And then they have competition from other countries for the cheaper labor costs and et cetera. But they've really been good at building their infrastructure, education, and they're not afraid of hard work. I certainly wouldn't agree with the first part of your sentence, but I've been thinking about it. Every country who has built up a large gold position, which is a direct threat to the New York, London, Tokyo financial system, is a direct threat to the United States bankers and our military and our debt and our seniorage. It seems like we always come up with a way, like the ruble crisis at the end of the 90s and the, with outright war or invasion. We always somehow seem to be able to go get the gold. And it does seem to me that you're right, that, and Ham said it too, but it's been in the back of my mind for a while that China's going to have to face a choice. Do they just break out of the Western financial system? Or if they stay in it, it's going to get expensive. They might have to spend their reserves, spend some of their gold. And I don't know. It's just, I think our financial system is on such, it's all on trust. It's all a con job everywhere. So I don't know. I don't know who would be the stronger in the long run. They have factories that can make things. I don't think we have many factories left. Yeah, it's too bad Ace couldn't come on. Um, well, yeah, Matt, what I remember reading, I can't remember the name of the company, but it was on the Wall Street Journal front page in that thing in the middle to my memory. And it was an article quite a while ago, like 15 years ago. But it was about how if you have an idea in the United States, if you have a company in the United States and you wanted, I can't remember the word. If you wanted to, anyway, if you wanted a piece of equipment created, there's a word for it where it's not coming in my head. There's no place in the United States to do it. I was, back then the oil business was booming and I was in Houston. I was trying to raise money for this pipe valve company. And they had to source their valves from China. Couldn't get them here. All right, so I can tell we're way behind. Thank you, Short Vixen. Thank you. From Glasgow, McLean. Yeah, I used to live in McLean, Virginia. From Glasgow. Thank you, Short Vixen. Gabriel. They haven't announced yet, Gabriel, but the feeling I get is something's coming for Finger the next 1 or 2 weeks. You know, it'll come when they're very careful and they do things correctly. If they need to take more time, they will. But what I'm hearing is that's the time frame. I don't think you need news for ZJYL to move. If the story's correct, the shorts are already massively underwater and their problem just got bigger. So I feel like I'm talking like Kamala Harris. We can go into the future unburdened by what was and unburdened by what will be. I think the promoting of women just to promote women might be a strategic mistake, at least in certain cases, but I don't know. It's beyond my social engineering pay grade. China's not communist, it's a dictatorship. Well, we in the West have always made a mistake of saying communism versus capitalism. It's kind of a non. I mean, we blur it here too, but capitalism is an economic system. Democracy is a government system, a governmental system. In China, communism is government. It's also, it gets confusing. It is also a means of production, but the trying to remember the. I didn't study Chinese government. Anyway, I don't know what the government system is at China, but in the Soviet Union, you know, I won't bore you with all that, but they had elections, but Stalin became, as you say, a dictator. Um, um, I'm not sure that Putin is a dictator, although he was president. He put Medvedev in, and now he's put himself back in. But I'm not going to judge how fair his elections are versus any other major economies in the world. As we know, Eric, here in the United States, the last election was the most transparent, the fairest, and the most attended election. We had 81 million votes for the most popular president in history, 74 million votes for, as you put it, a dictator. And when you add those votes up, it showed over 100% participation in the vote. So we had a highly successful election last time. I don't know in Russia if their system is better or worse than our democratic system here. I mean, we had absolutely no questions about the integrity of our vote, and maybe they have those questions in Russia. I don't know, but I don't think Putin's a dictator at all. He's brought back the Orthodox Church. They have a different system than we do. So you know, it's hard to measure, but I don't think he's a dictator. I do not think Trump is a dictator, Eric. If Trump were a dictator, let me ask you something. He lost last time, as you know, to the most popular president in the history of the United States. Over 81 million votes, more votes than Obama, more votes than Bill Clinton, more votes than Hillary Clinton. And if Trump were a dictator, why did he leave the White House? Why did he get on the helicopter and fly away? But I think what China is, it is a communist government. It is maybe a dictatorship, but they use capitalism down below. The Chinese work ethic is greater than I've ever seen. I lived in Southeast Asia when I was a boy, and I lived in Malaysia, and a third of the population was Chinese, and boy, did they work hard. It just unbelievable. So one advantage the Chinese government has, they listen to science as we do. We follow the science, but they also set out plans, you know, so they can make decisions on high-speed trains and factories and robots, energy for the long term. We do everything quarter to quarter, and I'm not sure that our decision making is as well informed now as it used to be. I don't know when ZJYL earnings are, and I just don't think it matters. It's not going to shock anybody. What I expect is when the market opens tomorrow, here and also in Hong Kong, China. I think it's been a week since the forward split, or 5 trading days, 6 trading days. I think that's where the pressure is going to come from. Buy-ins is what's going to cause the stock to go up. All right, no chatting. You better say your grace. Dewey Decimal System. All right, KYP is saying, I'm way behind. What time is it? 9:49. Are you out of your mind? DXY is pushing. I don't I don't know what O-O is. Is the market open yet? That's pretty funny. Sorrento Therapeutics. I'm sorry we didn't get that. I don't have any information on that, but I've heard it. And next time. Back in Virginia. Good night. Salmon was for lunch. Bye, Jenny L. Bye, Jenny L. Are you kidding, John? Are you kidding? He told his economics teacher it's all fraud, and he got scolded. Well, you know, they say those who can do and those who can't teach. Where's he going to school? I studied economics. I'll go talk to the professor. Avid says, well, if GTII were to go to 100, that would be huge. That would be huge. I didn't see your question before him signed off. We'll get him to talk about it later, but Avid, you know, that's one quality of Avid's that I respect. He makes his own determinations and he lets the charts tell him what to think. Put on CC closed captions. Yes, I don't know how to do it. All right, I'll write that down. Maybe it's in the settings. I'll do that, Amy. And I guess that's because I talk so loud. Smiling and relaxed. It's just because of you, Moody Waters, everybody else. You guys relax me. KYP said hi to Lion. I like that. I like that name. Did I skip over them? Dark hair. Yeah, Ace. Ace is coming. Ace does a great job. Dewey, if you're still here, no, you don't have to set up an account at AST. At least I didn't have to. When I got my shares, which are now over in that file, I've shown them a few times. I called in to see what I needed to do. And they recognized my phone number somehow, or I had to put in my social security, something. And the computer said back to me how many shares I had. So I still have them here. And I think I don't remember my rationale for keeping them. I think to show you I had them. And, but anyway, the account, what do you call it? The direct registration, by switching the shares from electronic to physical, they set up your account. Your brokerage firm gives them the data. So you don't need to set up anything. What is a realistic price for GTI? 3 to 5? Yeah, those are realistic. If it starts to buy in, I'm a little cautious still on GTII. If it runs, it runs. But they can drive it back down. So I don't, sorry for yawning. But yeah, I think people will, if it starts to run, people will start to sell at $3, $4, $5, $6. I didn't know what to think of Johnny Tobacco, because there's a lot of people that come on and jump in front of everybody, and without naming names, I think a lot of those, at best, a lot of those people have been opportunists. But when I listened to Johnny Tobacco, Friday, maybe Thursday or Friday, anyway, whenever I was on the Space Colony came on, I was impressed with Johnny Tobacco and what he's done, and data he sees. He can't do it, but he could point out where the bad guys are. He has such a track record that he could probably turn in some bad actors. But I don't think he can afford to do that because, his network and his business is his livelihood. Long time ago, I called in to Wes Christian a couple of times. He never called back. And I think Wes Christian is good, but I've never really dealt with him, so I can't totally comment. I do think he needs to get paid, and he's not unlike Richard or even Mark. I think Mark Bazile needs to get paid, but I think Mark gives a lot of his time and ideas and hard work without necessarily knowing how he's going to get paid. So I'm not sure Wes would do that. And Wes is turned on, I think, by the big money. He did the interview with a billionaire, Eric Sprott, who I really like. I've never met Eric Sprott. I met his former partner, billionaire Rick Rule, another guy I like. But I will say that Ham taught or introduced anyway Wes Christian to the whole idea of short selling, and then Ham's company, and then the whole background of the story. We can ask Ham to describe it one time. But Wes was in a different field, real estate or something like that, prior to his meeting Ham. Sharon is that guy who I think he worked at Morgan Stanley, and he tells the story on YouTube video that he just takes the order. If someone calls him, do you have the shares? Yes. And he takes the order. And I don't know much about them either. They have a strategy, and maybe it's different than Johnny Tobacco's. I don't know. But the reason I brought up what I said about Johnny Tobacco wasn't to pick on him, but it is to pick on Sharon. That guy surely must know, the share and tell guys, surely must know who the criminals are. He sat and took the orders. But anyway. I don't know about Fidelity, but I know at E-Trade, there's a form you have to fill out. And I was going to do that today and I didn't do it. I don't know if Wes has done a lot for GTII or MMTLP. GTII hired Wes, and then Ham introduced Wes to CRTD, Finger, I think even COSM, although I don't know if it went anywhere. I think Wolf. Anyway, Ham introduced a bunch of companies to Wes. So Wes now has more business than he can say grace over, and he has constraints on his time. I do know that Wes reportedly filed against market makers on behalf of GTI, 50 or 52 of them, about spoofing. And I don't know where it is now. We want him to. Okay, you're a lawyer. Number one, your client's GTII. It's not all of us. And then you're going to say, well, we're shareholders. Well, yeah, but it's the board and the management that hires him. And then you're going to want him to disclose to us live how far he's got, telling Alpine and telling John Hurry and telling the Kramers where we are. It doesn't make any sense. But you might be right, he hasn't done much. You must have access to more information than I do. I just think we don't know how much he's done for GTII. For MMTLP, Wes Christian was not hired by MMTLP. MMTLP does not exist. There was company's Flame Screwer or something that was set up. Those insiders hired Wes, and I think he's done some work. I don't know if he's been hired by Nextbridge or not. I have no idea. But I would imagine that Wes is going where the money is. To me, he wants to be John Angeles or somebody like that. And he'll be a billionaire. I think Wes will become a billionaire. I won't transfer my shares until I have to. Well, that's the advice I get from a lot of people is at least leave some shares. One of the advantages of having your shares at the brokerage firm is you could get cash quickly. I don't think it's a softball. And I don't know what you mean. A softball to the shorts. I don't think that it's over yet. Stoney, everyone is upset, but a year in November of last year, GTII was in a squeeze. And then COSM came over and got everybody to invest in COSM. It was over. That squeeze was over. That squeeze was underway partly because, or all because of a special dividend, which was a warrant. But we left it. And so now we bemoan it because that's Wall Street. Yesterday doesn't matter. Hey, Hector. The bagels are the best, and the pizza. Bagels are the best. It's the water. It's the water. Well, AMC, I mean, it's hard to look back, but you have to be easy on yourself. It's so hard to sell. In the middle of the run, it's $70 and all the enthusiasm, and it's going to 500. It's so hard to sell. And the biggest thing to learn is sell part of it. Sell enough so that you can pay your bills for the next year, you know? And uh, uh, I mean, happened with GTII and Finger and CRTD, and it's just so hard to sell. All right, Gabriel. He didn't hear it, but I'll write it down and tell him tomorrow morning. BAOS 500K float Chinese. All right, so here's Lion's view on GTII. Bullish, it goes to 40 or 50 cents. Bearish pulls back to 25. I agree with the 40 cents. And I agree with the 25 cents. I'm doing it by gut. I'm not doing it. I think 40 cents is pretty significant. I think it can go back below 25 cents. That's my only worry. But hey, the action on Friday was huge. It really was a big change in sentiment, and that's the whole thing. Sentiment can change on a dime. Yeah, go to Lion of All Trades on YouTube. Go to Lion of All Trades on YouTube. At Shabowski. Do you get taxed on your input dollars when you take gains? I think you mean your cost. No, you get so if you paid $10,000 for GTII and you sold it for 30,000, you're taxed on 20,000, not on the original monies. Not yet, anyway. They might get around to it, but no. Well, we should have gotten out at 77, but also maybe should have gotten out some of it at, well, I don't know. I didn't follow it, how quickly it ran up. But there were some days where after the 77 where you could have gotten maybe sold some at 50 or 35 or whatever. And I'm not lecturing. I mean, it's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. That's good. 208 finger is good. Yeah, Korean wife. I don't know how I'll meet her, but because I'm not going to go down to the whatever that zone was. What did the giraffe say when he walked into the bar? Pour me a high one. I know I used to have a lot more than I do, so I should do that. Baus had 2 reverse splits. Yeah, then yeah, Spock is probably right. If it had reverse splits, but I'll look at it anyway. I wrote it down. Ramon. I think ZJYL is going to be an enormous squeeze because of the forward split. Look, the story was 1.3 million shares in the float, 7 million something in the outstanding. 85% of the outstanding shares held by insiders. The float is owned by 12 people and whoever else owns the float. And prior to this forward split, the shorts had shorted the stock to the extent, that's the story anyway, to the extent of a counterfeit 10 million shares with a price of $25. Stock went as high as $5.50. Post split, that 10 million shares that is counterfeit naked short is 200 million. So the forward split is an experiment to see what happens. Shouldn't GDC be a bigger squeeze than because I don't know. They're both infinite. They're both basically infinite. The float, Ramon, in ZJYL is 1.3 million prior to the split. Multiply that by 20, it's whatever that is, 26. No, it's 300,000, so it's not 6. Yeah, maybe it is 26 million. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. So it's 26 million shares with over 200 million short. I don't know how much over. So that's 10 to 1. In the case of GDC, I don't know what the float is off the top of my head. But there's rumored, as you heard, 92 or 93 million shares short. So maybe the ratio is better, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's just so big in both cases. I think the attention, I just don't know how to say it any better. I think the attention right now is on ZJYL first, and then GDC will move next or at the same time. Should it be a bigger squeeze? The target I heard on GDC is $50. $50. The target I heard on ZJYL prior to the forward split was 20, 25, 30, $35,000 a share. Now I'm hearing more reasonable numbers of $350, $450, $500 a share. I don't know which one will happen. Well, thank you, BB Vision. That was Ham, and that was, the jokester. If I transfer my shares to AST and there's a settlement, well, the settlement will probably have 3 parts. One is costs, and I mean, it won't go to you, but you'll get that benefit. Secondly, is any kind of opportunity cost or penalty, pain and suffering, penalties, all of that you're going to get part of. Thirdly, if there's a cash dividend, I think it'll go to all parties, including you. So now the way you would benefit is if there's a share settlement, a per price settlement for MMTLP. I think it'll be based on a share value calculation, probably on an engineering report. And I do agree that it should be non-diluted. So whatever that number is, if we make it up, $1,000 a share, I'm just making it up. If there's a cash payout to MMTLP at $1,000 a share, probably Nextbridge is going to issue a lot of shares to help balance the books at $1,000 or higher, maybe higher, to take care of pain and suffering and dividends and lawyer fees, costs. But anyway, that would mean your shares, at least at that moment in time, should be valued at that price. What you miss is that's a liquid event at the broker dealer by having your shares at Nextbridge, a private company. It's not liquid. So that might bug you. My opinion is, and it's too, I don't want to explain it for very long here, but to get it resolved, all the parties have to agree. And you're going to have probably 500 million MMTLP placeholders trying to get into 250 million spaces. I'm talking about post. Right now, it's trying to get into 165. There's 250 million shares roughly outstanding. There's 500 million shares approved at Nextbridge Holdings. Roughly 250 million can be used to help settle this up. I don't think it's going to be enough. So I think there'll be some fluidity to get that all everywhere where everyone wants to be. Then they'll get the number of shares that are extra, and that'll come out of DTCC. I'll try to do a video on it. I just don't want to go through it all now. I think in a settlement, if you're at AST, you might, I can't promise that you might get a chance to move over to the broker dealer's settlement. You will get the dividend. If there's a cash dividend, it'll go to everybody. You will get pain and suffering. You will get penalties, and you will get, even though maybe you don't see another benefit, you'll get the cost of the lawyers paid and all other costs paid. You will also get in your shares at AST. If MMTLP settles at 1,000, it's not pulled out of thin air. It'll be based on the value of the oil in the ground and perhaps some other calculation that the judge or the group assesses, like time value of money. But it will mean that your shares are worth that much in that point in time. So anyway, I'll do a better presentation. It makes my head pound to repeat the same thing over and over again. And it's not your fault. I just gotta do a video on it. Yeah, that's who it was. Which one would I put money in now? That's so tough. If you're only picking one, I mean, I don't know your risk parameter. I'll tell you, if I were doing it, I think I'd buy ZJYL because I think it's going to have a run over the next 2 or 3 weeks. But what's the risk in ZJYL? Prior to this forward split, ZJYL was trading at $300. So there's a lot of downside risk in ZJYL. So the risk reward is the risk is really high in ZJYL if the criminals get a hold of it and can pressure it down. On the other hand, I don't think any of these people are going to sell. I think there could be buying, and the China market's going to come back. Who knows? So I think ZJYL could go to $500, $1,000 a share. That would be fun. So I depending on what kind of money you have to invest, and depending on what your goal is with it, I think ZJYL has the most excitement. It hasn't been gotten under control. It's like a stallion, a wild stallion. Maybe they got it into the pen for a night, but they haven't gotten the saddle on it, and it has a chance of jumping the wooden fence in a moment of energy and go back up the mountains. FINRA and GTII have both been well and truly beaten down by criminal selling, in my judgment. I think there's going to be a lot of news on FINRA. FINRA is trading much, much better. And I think FINRA can go to $3 and then $4 and then $5. Question is, if a dividend is announced, if an acquisition is announced, if a money raise is announced, if a brand new source of revenue is announced on FINRA. We know these things have been out there pending, or we at least can surmise they are, because of the September 11th shelf registration. So how high does FINRA go? Then it comes down to, is the punishing selling activity over the last 2 years in FINRA, is it just algorithmic trading where they've covered along the way, or is it a massive short position? If the selling, the buying gets out of control in FINRA, you could get a real run in that. But I just think they have it under control. So it's going to take a huge surprise to move it beyond 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, they've done that before, but that's a nice move. It's a really nice move. GTII, I have no way of explaining what happened on Friday. Ham said on 2 calls that he was hearing there was buying of an offer to buy of like 20 or 25 million shares from a family office, which is from a short seller. Maybe they just decided to start buying in the open market. I don't know. Is Alpine going to enforce buy-ins? I don't think so. Is whoever's overseeing Alpine? Maybe. Could there be more selling pressure in GTII? Well, if you believe Ham, they've sold 450 million. Why can't they sell another 100 million? I don't know. But GTII, that was really impressive on Friday. So I think what I would do, ordinary angler, is I would buy FINRA, and I would assume you can double your money in FINRA. I don't know how long. It could take 2 weeks, it could take 2 months, it could take 5 months. But I think you can assume that you will see $5 or $6 again in FINRA, and maybe for a sustained period of time. Then I would take, so anyways, if you have 10 grand, I would take 5 grand, put it in FINRA. And I know that my downside event, if I wait long enough in FINRA, should be doubling my money, maybe more. So I know my 5 grand will turn into 10. Then I'll take that other 5, and I think I would lean to CJYL, because you already own GTII. I would lean to ZJYL, and maybe 2/3 in ZJYL and 1/3 in GTII. I might just buy part of GTII in case it pulls back, buy whatever position I want to buy a third of it in case it pulls back. But you already own GTII. That way, if ZJYL collapses, if ZJYL were to collapse for some reason, and GTII, you would know that your finger would make up the money. That's how I think I would do it. That's how I would do it. I'm not looking for a wife. All right, I'm going to try to go through. Yeah, Chrissy Hines. So I'm way behind. I loved her voice. All right, let's just skip some of these. H bar, I'll give you your chance there. H bar. I don't know anything about it. No, I'm here in DC still, HL. But the trip is in the works. I just don't know when for sure. Well, you're saying Kissinger and the World Trade Organization. You know who got all of that signed? The Republicans couldn't get it passed. You know who got it signed? Bill Clinton. Thank you, Jerry D. I would love to just say hi to that dog. Hey, Miles. Press 1. All right, good. I'm coming to the end. Are you just going to do in one? It's odd that I guessed 10K. What I would do, I'd put 5,000 in finger, and I might, with all three, I might not just buy it all at once. I might just buy part, but I would put 5,000 in finger because finger's going to double. I think it might not do it in 2 weeks. Maybe it takes 3 months. But you have a report out there from Benchmark says it's $5. So that, in a way, these are all speculative plays, but in a way, finger is your safer bet. So if finger were to go from 5 to 10 grand, 15 grand, you know that you get your other 5 back. So you don't lose that 5. And then with 5, I think I would put, you could put, I would emphasize ZYJL. Why? Because I think ZYJL is about to run. It's almost damn it, this computer. Sorry for swearing. ZYJL is almost a virgin squeeze. It had a run to 550 pre-forward split, but it was quick one day, and I don't think it's over with. And I think the shorts, whoever they are really in trouble in ZJYL. So and then GTII, that heck of a breakout. Whatever you put in GTII, I would buy, a third or half tomorrow, but I think you'll get a chance. I would bid for the rest. I think you'll get a chance to buy some of that lower. That's how I would do it. I'm tired of losing money. So I would put half in finger because the finger doesn't run, as we're calling it. It should trade up, and it should make the other half a free ride for you. And you can always sell calls on finger after it does run too. So Stalin had a bad attitude, and he almost lost World War II. What was the VP? Oh, I forget what she was talking about. I can't believe. Oh, you did videos. Okay, so people can watch videos on Sorrento. Somebody was asking you if you're still, what your opinion was on it, but I can't remember the question. Yahoo has a price target of $24 in GTII. I don't know what that means. Lena, there's nothing new on it. We did talk, Richard talked about and Ham talked about, there's a new case, a new ruling out of the 11th Circuit Court or whatever, more Mark Bazille's bailiwick than Richard's, which is going to make it very difficult for these non-registered security dealers to issue these notes, which are usurious. And otherwise it's a waiting game, you know. There's no news on HNRC other than it's getting high time for that cash dividend. And I think it's getting high time for WDHI to trade. And I think it's getting high time for a further discussion of where the company is. I think earnings are due soon, but there's no new news on it. I expect a good dividend coming, and I'm gonna, if I make money in one or two of these, I'm gonna come buy more HNRC. On Logic, the stock's trading much better. I think Logic is going to announce their reverse merger candidate imminently. But the story hasn't changed. It's the exact same story it's been for a year. Logic hired Aubrey advisors. They did a Aubrey SPAC with Data Logic. It's now called Collective Audience. And at the time of the D-SPAC, Logic was going to be acquired in a reverse merger. Well, here we are now, we're about almost 90 days later. It's high time for that deal to get done and announced. And I expect that there will be an announcement this coming week or next, but I don't know that for sure. And it's not the first time that I've said that, or the first time that it's been implied to me. There always seems to be delays. You've got CEOs talking to CEOs. You got bankers talking to bankers. You got lawyers dealing with lawyers. You've got SEC. You've got wives and children, and sicknesses and travel and elderly parents. You've got all the things of life. So it might not happen next week, might not happen the following week, but it's getting high time for Logic to do its reverse merger. I think it goes to 15 cents. It could go to 25 cents. It could go to 35 cents. And who knows if there's a tiny short squeeze, it could go, 75. KAS. I don't know. I don't know what kind of chart is sexy. I'm not sure they all signed it at the bottom. Not impressed today with Buxy. I don't know. Buxy. I don't know what Buxy is. Yeah, and I think they are working on it. And when I sat with Fizz, he explained what they're trying to do. But the House letter, in general, there's always exceptions, but the Senate doesn't like to sign something the House has created, and vice versa. So they are working on it. Well, I am behind. I am behind, and I very well may have misinterpreted. I didn't mean to misinterpret. I tried to be careful not to. If I did, I apologize. I don't even remember what I said. I'm just trying to come to the end of it. Oh yeah. Oh, for Wes, yeah. I'm trying to think what Wes would have done with it. Part of the problem, Stony, is Wes wants to get paid, and the first hire of Wes was paid by an investor. Reichman doesn't want to pay him. That's my opinion. That's where Finger is going to, as Sam mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's still possible, but they've had it. To the extent that stock charts tell you anything, over the last 2 years, the criminals have been very successful at getting GTII down from $9 to 20 cents. And now on Friday, it went from whatever, 20 cents. The Kramers everybody's done what they can do to protect their position. There's rumors of shorts trying to buy back stock. All the criminals have to do is keep selling. Just keep selling, 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 just keep selling. And when it goes up, keep selling, keep selling, keep selling. And when it goes higher, keep selling, keep selling, keep selling. And as it goes down and meets resistance, keep selling, keep selling. And as it gets down to 20 cents, keep selling, keep selling. And then it's meeting buying pressure, keep selling. On the other side, you know all the things. Do I have to go through them? You've got the FBI searching after someone who defrauded Westpac Securities. You do have West Christian going after the market makers, the 52 for spoofing. You do have Alpine being expelled by FINRA. It's in delay period. I can't do anything about that. You do have a company that still has some whales on the side of making the stock go up, but you have the negative is you have a CEO who's trying to take control. And I don't think that's a good situation. The CEO has to retire or become non-active, in my judgment. And that's what's going on. I've said this many times. That's what I think's going on. There is nothing in GTII. It's a shell company. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. There's been different, I'm not going to run through them all. There have been many different items that have been tried to make the squeeze work. One of them was a distribution of a restricted dividend that was a warrant. The squeeze was happening a year ago, but now we've been in the misery of a year because everyone moved over to COSM. COSM took $35 million out of the market. GTI hasn't done that. I don't think GTII is the best trade out there right now. I think the best trade right now is ZJYL for a squeeze. I think Finger is the best trade, possibly for a double or a triple. I think Logic is the best trade for a 3 to 5 on your money, but it might only be a double in the very near term. None of these are riskless. None of these are riskless. I think CAUD at $1 could be $8 to $15 in a year. It's a pretty good trade. But there's risk if management doesn't recognize, to not do another bad deal, but I don't think they're going to do that. HNRC has 2 dividends coming that are worth more than the stock price. But there's other stocks out there. I just can't think of them off the top of my head right now. And silver, physical silver, could have a squeeze that's better than any stock you're in. So there's lots of choices. But yes, it's still possible. I think they have it under control. And for the shorts, apparently through a family office trying to buy stock, they're obviously working on behalf of shorts. I think that would be the success of the shorts driving it down. I think the shorts paid somebody off last year to get everyone enthusiastic of moving to COSM. and they have all those tricks still in their bag. But Friday's action in GTII was huge, and it was huge to the positive. It was huge to the good guys. It was huge as a potential for more movement coming. My computer is starting to freeze, so I might not be able to finish. Hooked Hill, I'm not going. Well, he's not. I don't know who your financial advisor is. Does he work for an insurance company? It's not true. I transferred my shares from my retirement account a week ago to my regular account. I mean, it's not a huge position. The thing is, it's a taxable event, and there may be taxable reporting. They have to read that to you. The value right now is zero. There is no value to those shares. Now, when you go to report it, in my case, I could argue I have a loss, but they're not going to give you the loss because it was in the IRA. So there's only two numbers you could probably use. One is the $2.89 of well over a year ago, or the fact that it does not trade. It has not traded in over a year. Congress, broker dealers, skeptical people, whoever you want to call them, are telling you it's zero. MMTLP is zero. So you can report that to the IRS as that it had no worth, or you can take it's up to you. You can take a different tack. I'm going to distribute it from my IRA, and I'm going to say it's worth some fantastical number. I don't know why you would do that, because right now it has no value, no market value, no trading value. So it transfers out. From an IRS standpoint, there's no tax on that distribution. Then you get those shares registered out. But I don't know who your financial advisor is. Maybe it's an insurance company, or maybe it's maybe it's Sears Roebuck. I don't know. Yeah, PLTR people have been talking about. All right, I think I wish my computer wasn't freezing. LOVA 96% on cancer treatment. I don't know. I don't know anything about that stock. And news is great, but money, it's like buying a house. The house can be great, but if you have a disastrous mortgage, you're never going to make any money. So what really matters is what their financing is, and I don't know anything about it. When do I think we'll get a resolution for MMTLP? I think we'll get a resolution as soon as, I hope that MMTLP does not raise money from Roth Capital now, anyway. But if they need money to accelerate their development, they'll do so. I think Roth Capital can be a front for shorts without even realizing it. As soon as Roth Capital raises money, the shorts will be right there to give them the money. So they'll think, wow, we did a great job. It'll just be helping solve part of the problem. But anyway, I don't think Craig McCabe will do that. But if he does do it, it's because he has a plan to develop the Oro Grande. I think the settlement will come when someone starts bidding on Oro Grande, starts bidding on buying it. When there's more projects that are done at $30, $40 a barrel proven, when oil's $200, which could happen very soon. When there's an engineering report, there hasn't been one that I know of ever made public, but maybe there was when they were raising money. But I don't know why Greg McCabe would release that as a private company if he still wants to lease up more of the structure, more of the play. So I don't know if we'll see that. But the settlement will come when the prime brokers think they're losing their ass. Right now, the lawyers are telling him, don't worry about it. That it's just the greed, it's just speculation, just stall for time, because the lawyers are getting paid. Settlement will come when your broker dealer and the prime brokers think they're going to lose $1 trillion. They'll race to the settlement table. They just don't see it yet. ACB. Yeah, it's not financial advice. Thank you very much, Lion. Yeah, GTII was very impressive. Very impressive. I think you mean Friday. I couldn't agree with that more. Why should they be treated like a government organization and then hide behind the fact, hey, we're not a government organization. Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's see what Lion says to Angler. There you go. You summarized it. ZJYL will trade potentially in the short run. And by the way, if it doesn't work in the short run, you lost money. I would get out. I would not hang on. But if it works, then that's an interesting point. I didn't say, Angler. If ZJYL worked and you turned 5,000 into 50,000, you could come back and buy more Finger, more GTII. But you already bought a little bit of Finger in my little strategy. So if they don't work out, you're not throwing that money away anyway. Well, yeah, I think it's early, Eric. I'm not ready to say that Friday's action was bad because it was really good. But it's just been down so long, down. One snapback isn't enough to change that, but it was really impressive. So it's something to watch now, I think. Well, big tech guys, I don't know if it's scary like tomorrow. Anything can happen in this market. And anything can happen in the world. The world is closer to World War III than any time in our lives. And but I think it's more likely we're going to have a blow off top. The market's going to go up right now than down. And in that, the tech stocks will go back up. But eventually, that all those tech stocks, the PE ratios are not sustainable. And I mean, I wish we had made money by now, because I think, I don't know how old you are, CB, it doesn't really matter. I think the place to be, the stocks to be in over the next cycle are going to be energy and resources. But even those can get depressed. I think you got to be out of regional banks. I think you got to be out of the banks in general. I think anything to do with, technology is probably going to still work. It always seems to work. But anything to do with the precious metals, resources, is going to be important. But it's going to be sort of defensive stocks too. Concerts tomorrow night. I do need to get a PC. Concerts tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to it. Well, the one thing China has to worry about is a revolution. They have to worry about a revolution. But I wouldn't bet against China. I think China, everybody there works hard, and they've got better factory, everything. But so does Malaysia and Vietnam. Oh, but they forced them to cover. Did the stock go up? I guess. Thank you, Frankie. Sorry, the thing is very slow. They can settle the same day. They know what's going on. Well, I don't know that everything is propped up, and I don't know that everything is fake. But in the United States, we borrow money and we spend it on the military, and we waste a lot of it. 85 billion, for example, left behind in Afghanistan. We send our children to college and university on loans, and then we forgive those loans. We call that GDP. All this bank moving monies around and manipulating stock prices and stealing and all, we call that GDP. It's nothing. We've built up a lot of real estate, and we call that GDP. And we haven't built out our infrastructure the way China has. Yeah, I would agree that they've lent out a lot of money in these countries, but they also don't go in with a woke agenda. They don't say you have to hire women. They don't say you got to treat your people. They don't do any of that. I'm not saying that's right. They also tie the payments back very strictly. So they have claim on resources. But to follow your point further, if the world goes into a depression, which I think is a real possibility, we're going to have inflation. There's no way the United States can get away from inflation. They've been destroying, I don't know who it is, our chicken factories and hatcheries, our farms, our farmland with railroad chemical spills, meat packing, and then the the Suez Canal, the around Somalia, all of that has been made impossible to traverse. The Panama Canal is too small, I guess. Prices are going up. They're just going up. And we don't have as many farmers, by the way. And I don't think women want to go drive tractors. So I don't know what's coming for our country, but prices are going up. So we're going to have inflation, oddly, but we could also have a depression. And that's why we're going to war. And we're going to call that GDP. So I don't know. I wouldn't use our measurements against China. China has enormous reserves of gold, and we may have none. China has enormous reserves of currency, and they do own a lot of productive assets worldwide. I don't see it, but I guess what I'm arguing, Eric, is I don't see that we're that much better because we don't have those factories anymore. A lot of the money we print is borrowed, and we keep doing it even though the rest of the world is selling our currency. They're moving away from pricing the oil in dollars. And a lot of our money just goes transfer payments. I don't know. I guess that's what I'm arguing about. I'm not sure we're in that much better position. I think we can be. And that's why maybe instead of Joe Biden, we need to get a president who can bring jobs back home. Thank you, Lion. Market was closed today. Biden got 81 million votes because those were anti-Trump votes. They couldn't vote. They couldn't vote for somebody else. Jill Stein. They couldn't vote for Jill Stein. You're never going to get the right numbers, but in 2022, there were 161 million people registered to vote. Okay, the previous election, 168 million. Okay, 168 million. I don't believe it, but there were 168 million registered to vote. 168 minus 81, 87. All right. So we had one of the best elections ever. I don't know if it's the Rothschilds. Oh, God. You know, CB, Christianity or Catholicism forbade interest as well, or at least some aspect of interest. That's why in many situations, the money, the money changers, the money loaners and lenders were other religions. I leaving religion out of it, I don't see how the planet can continue to grow its wealth under a compounding of interest situation. We're a closed environment. There's no way for that kind of growth unless we go get an asteroid, maybe, but otherwise we can't have it. Iran's not going to fall. Iran's not going to fall. Victoria Nuland is delusional. Iran's not going to fall. The country that may fall is Israel, which you're going to go, wow, why would you, how could that be? Well, I hope not, but Netanyahu is taking enormous risks, absolutely enormous risks. And if the United States is left with, we can send nuclear bombs, or we can back off, we're not going to send those bombs. So, no, Iran's not going down. Yeah, I think the woman's name was Blythe. Let me look her name up. It wasn't Chase, it was JP Morgan, but let me get her last name. I always try to remember it. Blythe. I can't. JP Morgan, female executive, silver. I'm not going to find her name. I want to say Blythe Masterson, but that's not it. Anyway, it's not worth it. I can't think of her name. But yeah, the silver market has been manipulated forever. That may be true. Our people don't work that well. All night long, all night. One of the worst songs he ever did. All night long. I mean, he never does a bad song. I didn't much like Say You, Say Me. I liked Because I'm Easy like Sunday morning. I didn't know he did that one. I guess I did. And now, how does it go? You are my endless love. When we are together. That's not what I'm trying to think. God, he did a lot of songs. What was his biggest hit? Yeah, that's the one I'm trying to do. Endless Love. That's number one. Number two is All Night Long. Number three is You're Once, Twice, Three Times a Lady. I love you. I love you. When we are together. And then four is Say You, Say Me. Ugh. Oh, I like that one a lot. Just to be close to you, girl. And number six is Still. I do love you. Dun, 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 dun. Still. Seven is You Are, and eight is Sail On, Party. All right, let's see what the Commodore says. The Guardian says. Lionel Richie's greatest songs ranked. Number 20, Let's Do It Right. 19, Love Will Conquer All. I don't know that one. 18, Up All Night. 17, Too Hot to Trot. I don't remember that one. 16, I probably do, but it's faded out of my. Say You, Say Me. 15, Sail On. 14, Can't Slow Down. 13, Free. 12, Deep River Woman. 11, Sweet Love. Oh, that was a song. Sweet. Oh, that was an amazing song. Yeah, reminds me. That gives me memories. 10, Hello. 9, Fancy Dancer. 8, Stuck on You. 7, Zoom. Zoom, Zoom. And 6, Endless Love. And 5 is Lady. 4 is Brick House. 3 is Brick House. How could they leave that off the other list? 3 is Three Times a Lady. 2, All Night Long. And number 1, according to The Guardian, is Easy. Easy like Sunday morning. Gonna be high. All right, I'm going to sign off because I'm tired. And I thank everybody for coming on. I don't see any last questions, so I'll leave it with that one. So, yeah, God, that song that came on all the time. It's a good song, but it had, as I understand it, something to do with the brick house, All right. So anyway, thank everybody for coming on. Really appreciate it. I wish everybody a good night. And I just hope one of these trades can work to put a little bit of money in your pocket. And don't be afraid to take a quick profit with at least a small portion to get your money off the table. And you know, it's Lent, so pray for peace if you think of it. Pray for all the little children in the war zones, hungry, and the rest of humanity, the animals too. And pray for Jenny L. And I'm going to leave it there. We'll see you tomorrow. I may not have a long stream tomorrow because I want to go to the concert and be in a fresh mood. So good night, everyone.